And by the way, I still believe this 100% with all my heart, that if you're on the air for 3 hours, it's like working 8 straight hours.
Yeah, agreed.
It takes so much nonstop energy that it's not like working 3 hours at a job where you sit. You're in front of millions of people. And so your own maybe pride, but says, I've got to do a good job. That red light comes on the camera and you're there and ready to roll. You can't just stand there and go, I don't feel like talking to you today, or I don't feel like doing this today, so I'm going to just let the guest take over. You can't do that.
This is StRest. I'm Kirsten Lindquist, health coach, author, and Emmy award-winning TV host. I've committed to helping people reduce stress through impressive health science, attainable mindset change, and biblical truth. Let's have a real conversation with zero judgment and endless solutions that you can use. You aren't alone. You can do this. Let me help you reduce stress and make room for rest. On StRest, we talk a lot about supporting the systems in your life that hold you up, your habits, your routines, sleep, but that also includes your feet. Remember that song we used to sing, knee bone connected to the hip bone? That's not right, but you know where I'm going with this, right? It's all connected and it starts with your feet. And if you're like me, you probably sacrificed comfort to style more times than you can count. I was able to join Revitalign when I worked at QVC to create really, really great shoes, flip-flops, sandals for you for many years. And now they are a sponsor of StRest. I love this brand. My entire family wears them. It's all about aligning your body from the ground up, literally, but also doing it with super cute styles. I wear them around the house, on long days of filming, even traveling, of course, down at the beach. And the difference is my body feels better at the end of the day. And that's what I want for you as well. Going into a new season, make sure you get yourself new, good shoes. And we have a discount for you. Visit wacoshoecompany.com. That's WACO shoecompany.com and enter the code Kirsten, KERSTIN 20 for 20% off everything from really cute wedges to boots to sneakers. Get out there and get your sneakers. That's Waco Shoe Company, WACO shoecompany.com and put in the code Kirsten 20, KERSTIN 20. So you get 20% off and support yourself from the ground up. So I really feel like sometimes when the devil knows that something really good is happening, he will do everything he can to stop it. And I know we feel that a lot in our lives, whether you are out there speaking the word of Jesus, whether you're trying to help somebody, and maybe you just became a Christian and you're feeling like life has actually gotten harder. We know that there's forces of evil. We know that there's spiritual warfare. I don't want to get too deep because this is going to be a really fun conversation, but I do have to say about this episode, my dear friend, Beth Roe, came into my home. We started the podcast. It was fantastic. About halfway through, the power went out. And then we're like, okay, it's going to come back on. It didn't. It did. But then the internet wouldn't work. And then we got the internet working and then the power went out once again. And in between, her and I were able to catch up because we're close friends and be able to share some time together, which is exactly what we needed. But we kept on saying, come on, Lord, we've got a lot of Jesus to spread. We've got to talk about faith in QVC. We've got to talk about transitions in life and retirement and trust and grandbabies and cognition and all these things that you're going to hear in this podcast. But the devil kept on coming in. So this is a 2-part podcast within this podcast. You're going to see the two of us meeting today, and then you're going to hear the rest of the interview a couple of weeks later. So it's a very interesting live from my home episode of StRest with, we call her the Queen of QVC, Beth Roe. Well, you all are coming in because Beth and I are already catching up. It's been a couple months.
Actually, about 6 weeks or so.
Since you're going away, or since your retirement party.
My retirement party, 7 weeks since then.
Wow. That's the last time we saw each other.
That's right.
How are you?
I miss you.
I miss you. I was so excited about this. To spend some time with you.
I'm excited too, because it's such a unique experience.
Yeah.
I've never felt this way before,
Right.
you know?
Tell people, I mean, you all, I would say, grew up with Mary Beth, have aged with Mary Beth, had babies with Mary Beth, but somebody who might be coming brand new to this podcast, what's your background?
I've started out of college. I graduated with a degree in business, communications, and education, and basically started in television right out of college. And worked in TV news for 3 years. Then my husband and I moved to Canada for a couple of years, then moved back. And when I was trying to get back into television news, nobody was hiring. And that's when the shopping channels were starting up. And one was in Minneapolis. So I went to that one, auditioned, got the job. I worked there 3 years, and then they put us in a room one day and said, QVC bought CVN. That was the name of the one that cable value network. And they said, you're all going to be out of a job. And we had just had our first baby. Mark was working. We just bought our first house, and you're like, oh,
And this was all in Minneapolis, right?
yes, in
Okay.
Minneapolis. So then they auditioned, QVC basically interviewed and auditioned us again for 4 positions. There were 30 of us going for 4 positions. And I was so blessed to get it. And even then, my husband and I thought we didn't want to move east. We were in Minnesota where both our families were, and we'd just gotten back from Canada. And anyway, to make a long story short, we said, let's just be there about a year. And 38 years later, I retired.
So 38 years
Yeah, it's a
in,
long time.
in one job.
Yeah. It's hard to imagine because I was 28 when I started. And of course, now at my age, that's so young. I mean, my third son is older than that. And I look at him and I imagine him getting a job that he stays in at the same place till he retires. That's just, especially these days, that's just unheard of.
Yeah.
I'm so blessed.
Yeah, you really are.
I am.
So making the decision to retire.
Mhm.
You're the first person we've had on the podcast who has talked about that. We've had a lot of people talk about transitions in life and being called to do something else and hearing from the Lord, but
Mhm.
making the decision to retire, I think, is one that's very scary for a lot of people.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I've never gone without a paycheck since I was 14.
Yeah.
I've been working, even working in the summers during high school. So that obviously weighed on my mind. But, with the 4 grandkids and seeing my daughter in law just have these 4 little kids and needing help. And we both know, having been hosts, that there are things you miss that your kids do. And you don't get to go to everything. And so I just thought, I am not going to miss my grandkids, little programs at school and things like that because I have to work. And I also, when I was 64, and I thought, okay, next year I turn 65. Maybe we think about it. I'll also tell you that I just thought, I don't want to miss their, parts of life. And I was saying, even though I was active, the job is physical.
It
It
is.
takes a lot of physical energy. And whether it's doing a 2 hour show, a 3 hour show, a 4 hour show, running from studio to studio to studio to the warehouse studios to back to the kitchen studio. I mean, you can't even imagine. And then, there's no bathroom breaks in all those hours unless it's absolutely an emergency. It's just all those little things. And the thing is, I could put all my energy into the job, and then I had no other energy for my husband or my kids or my grandkids. When I wanted to see the grandkids on the weekend, I was just, I was so tired.
Yeah.
And I just thought, okay, there comes a point where you feel like you've given just about all you can give. And I mean, the bottom line is this: I knew the Holy Spirit was telling me,
Yeah.
it's time.
Yeah.
And I was kind of fighting that a little
Oh,
bit.
yeah.
I was like, no, I'm still, it been happening. And he's like, girl, I got other things for you to do.
Yeah.
So I finally said, okay, I'll do it.
Yeah. How long did that take for you to stop fighting and be like, okay, I'm going to do it?
Yeah, I'd say a couple months.
Yeah.
Probably. And then I told my boss in January of 2024 that I was going to retire in August of 2024. But then around April and May, uh, Kirsten was starting to talk about possibly leaving. Jen Coffey was getting married and possibly leaving. Vanessa Herring was pregnant, going to be due in October. And I think our boss was like, oh no, I can't lose four girls all at once.
Yeah.
And so they asked me to stay a little bit longer, and our contracts go March to March.
Yeah.
So I said, you know what? Let's just go till March of 25. And it actually turned out to be perfect. It really did. As always, when God sets it up, it's just perfect.
Yeah. Where he leads, he will provide. And that's exactly what happened. There's lots of questions in there, but I want to back up to the physical aspect of the job.
Mhm.
How did that change for you over the years? I talk about this all the time, being at QVC, because people are like, oh, you barely work because they only see you on air. And there's a whole lot that goes behind it. But when we're on air talking nonstop for 1, 2, 3, 4, now they're doing it for like 5 hours at a time. My goodness, how do they do it? How did that change for you over time and age?
Mhm. Well, I would say when I first started, we were doing 4-hour shifts 5 days a week. And it was 20 hours a week, no question. It kind of depended upon which shift you had, because back then we had set shifts. So you weren't all over the place, early morning, late night, and which we have been for the last 25 years. But I was 28, I was 30, I was 35, even though I had kids, I had energy,
Yeah.
I could do it. There came a time, really, at one point where so many hosts were getting sick, we were losing our voices, and it was because we were doing 20 hours a week on air. And another host and I, Lisa Mason, and I went to the president of QVC at the time and said, you're going to burn out everybody, and you just can't do that. And so then they pulled it back to 3-hour shifts. And so then it was 3-hour shifts 5 days a week. And then eventually it was 3 to 4-hour shifts 4 days a week, with a fifth day of meetings and things like that. So that seemed to help in many ways. But then, the whole thing is that when when I was younger and I had more energy, the studios were much smaller and all together, and you didn't run as much. And then as I got older, the more you ran and the more you had to hoof it from one place to the next and in between. And so anyway,
We used to have a golf cart that drove us around.
yeah,
And then it became like, I don't know, some like legal thing. So they took away the golf cart and we had to walk, which you're like, oh, poor baby, you have to walk. But when you're on for that long and you have to go back and forth,
yeah.
just to get.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's easy to get your 10,000 steps
And
in.
you're walking and talking. Like we've been
Yeah.
going from one set to the other, talking about whatever's on the air, and like
Right.
a producer telling you, okay, now you see a picture of this, and you talk about it.
Yeah. It's pretty crazy. But the other thing too that a lot of people don't see is all the hours that you spend prepping off air. And so, like, I would be there all day, and then I would go home around dinner time, like, let's say the last 5 years, because I've worked more daytimes, mornings and afternoons. Then I would go home, and then I would prep for 2 hours in the evening, and then go to bed. So I got to get up at 5 or 4 or 3:30 or whatever it was, depending upon what time I was on in the morning or in the afternoon. And it's a nonstop cycle, and it doesn't end. And which is great. That's what I signed up for.
Right.
And
We
I
loved
we
it.
loved it. It's exactly
She
right.
wouldn't have been there 38 years if she didn't
Yeah,
love it. Yeah.
But there just gets to be a point where you're like, I can't do it this much anymore.
Yeah. It's so true. I remember, I don't know how many years ago it was, but you'll remind me, you got in a really bad car accident.
Mhm.
And then, and at that point, your concern was cognition in this job.
100%. And That was in 2016.
Wow, was that long ago?
It was
like 5 years ago.
Easter of 2016.
Wow.
But here's the good news is that I was probably at around 60% cognition by the time I came back to work. I probably should have stayed out another 3 months. I took 3 months off. I should have stayed out another 3 months. But, you want to get back in the job. QVC, I felt like they needed me.
They did.
So you hop back in. And boy, I struggled at least for 2 to 3 years. But you know what's interesting? One of the best things I ever did, and I don't know if you know that I did this, was I went into an oxygen chamber twice a week for months and months. And one doctor had told me it's one of the best things you can do because you just are laying in there, and I'm claustrophobic. So believe me, when I thought I was going to panic and throw up on the first time, because it's like you can't see outside, you're just in a tube that they close. And, but you know what? I got to really enjoy it.
Yeah.
It was quiet time in the midst of my crazy life. And I would get into this oxygen chamber. Sometimes I would take a nap. Sometimes I would actually just sit there and sing hymns that I grew up on, or I would just talk to the Lord, or, you can work on your phone if you want to. It's crazy, but that helped bring my brain back. And I will tell you that it never will be 100%. And it got to be at the point where then I turned 60, and then you have some cognition things going on, whether you like it or not anyway. But I can tell I'll never be quite 100% because I used to be so sharp on my feet, like I could just think so fast. My husband used to say, stop thinking so fast because I'm just always, 3 sentences in front of him.
That's a big, Dan's listening upstairs. That's a big, we deal with that in therapy. He's like, she's just so quick and I can't compete. Not that it's a competition when you're discussing with your spouse, but
it's just
with this job, that's how we are. We're thinking 5 steps ahead. And so about that time, and then again, as you age in a job like this, cognition and speed and the way you talk is so important.
It is. And I can tell that my speech has slowed down.
Yeah.
And it's because I really have to think longer about everything. That was the other thing. There were times when I would watch after I'd get off the air, I'd go home and I had videotaped it and I watched it. And I was getting to the point where I didn't like hearing myself as much either. If I'm going to be real honest, I got to the point where I was just, other people, I would ask my best friends and they'd be like, no, you're fine. You're doing great. But I just know, yourself. And I felt like just the way I looked, the way I sounded, I could just tell that I was showing my age.
Yeah. Since we're being extremely honest, I have said that I started when I was 31, 32 maybe. And I always said that I didn't want to be there too long to the point where I was having to do plastic surgery and fix things. And I know that's a choice that you don't have to do that as you age, but especially how our society has gone and they look at you and there's such vitriol on social media. I always thought, listen, if I'm in my 60s and hosts will stay for, and we should, and we should embrace that. But I know personally, my threshold for meanness, I would be like, I gotta go get a facelift. I don't want to do that.
Right. And it's pressure.
Yeah.
Nobody says it to you, but you feel the pressure. And, sometimes the people on Facebook will say something to you, but, about, oh, your neck is really wrinkled.
Oh,
yeah, it is. I have my mother's neck. Thank you, Mom. But you know what? It is what it is. I still use great creams. It'd probably be 10 times worse if I didn't use all those great creams.
So true.
But you know what? I never wanted to do all that. And I'm fine if somebody else wants to.
Me too. Absolutely.
Really, I am. But I just felt like I also have seen a lot of bad facelifts.
I know.
I remember standing next to, I was here and a guest was here, and she hasn't been on QVC for years and years. But I remember working with her for the first time, and she was looking at the camera and I was looking at the side of her. And I was thinking, oh my goodness, that looks awful. It looks hideous. I saw all the scars. I could see all these weird things. And I was just like, I am never doing
I don't want to be there.
that.
Right.
Yeah. But you know what? It's one of those things where I have to say now after I've left and I'm not on the air, I feel less judged and more ability to just be myself.
How do you feel about yourself without that? Because it was a piece of your identity for 38 years. And we all at QVC think of her. Like I even said to my husband today when we were setting up, I was like, yeah, the queen is coming. She is. There has never been and will never be anybody like Mary Beth. So that had to be a piece of your identity. And now a few months out of it, how do you feel?
Yeah. Well, you know what? I was telling Kirsten when I arrived that there, I want to say week 3 and week 4 were hard. Why do I say that? Because the first week, right after the last show, we went on vacation. And so I was just thrilled to be in Arizona on vacation,
Yeah.
and I just floated around the pool for hours. Um, and this second week after I retired, I was sick as a dog. It's like I came back from Arizona, got sick with the flu, and I was in bed all week. Sorry, I talk with my hands, unfortunately.
All right. You do.
And it was probably the best thing I could have done because I was so exhausted. So I had the week of vacation, the week of being sick, and then I started feeling better but had nowhere to go. Okay. You know what I mean? It's like you get up in the morning and if I wasn't taking care of the grandkids that day, I'm thinking, okay, what am I going to do today? Now, part of me thought it was awesome because I was like, okay, I have the time to take a walk. I have the time to, sit down and read if I want to. But it was almost like there were all these things I had wanted to do that I didn't know what to do first. It was almost like it was overwhelming to me. And I sat there, and then the second week of that time period, I said to Mark, I'm not sure if I'm getting depressed or I'm just lethargic, but I feel like I just want to be a lazy bum. I just want to sit and do nothing or just sit and veg on television and whatever. And then I started worrying, okay, I can't do that because that's going to kill me.
Yeah. No, you got to keep your brain active.
So anyway, I kind of have been like this since retirement.
Right.
But I will tell you this. The good news is that now in the last week or two, I've felt much better and much more energetic and I'm getting up and doing things. And, when you work in the job as a host, your house just becomes chaos because you don't have the time. It's not that you don't want to be organized or that you don't want to, a clean house, but honestly, you don't have the time.
Right.
And so my closet was like a complete tornado. And so I've redone my whole closet, not like, building or anything, just taking clothes out, looking at them and saying, okay, do I want to wear this again? No, donate. Do I want to wear this again? Yeah, hang it up. And so I kind of redid that whole thing because it needed it desperately. And then it's like there's just piles of papers, QVC papers, other papers. My office, you can't see the desk. The lights just went out. Maybe the electricity went out.
I think maybe the electricity went out. Oh,
Wow.
That's so funny.
We'll be right back. Don't go away. It's just getting good.
Hey, quick break. Are you feeling your age a little bit? Joints or maybe brittle hair or face, skin? One supplement can address all of that. It's collagen. And my favorite by far is Ancient Nutrition. Collagen is the most abundant protein in the human body, so we need it. And Ancient Nutrition is my favorite because it's made from real quality ingredients that I know that I can trust. In just 2 scoops of their multi-collagen protein, you are getting 20 grams of protein to help support your hair, your skin, your nails, your joints. And as an added bonus, You're also getting vitamin C and probiotics. That's for gut and digestive health support. It's the perfect addition to any beverage. You can put it in your shake and things like that, but also overnight oats, baked goods. But I put the unflavored multi-collagen protein in my black coffee every single morning. It's perfect because it mixes really easily and it's virtually tasteless. I especially also love their strawberry lemonade because it's very super refreshing in the summer, but whatever, you need to get your collagen. Multi-collagen protein is more than just collagen. It's real results that you can see and feel from ingredients that you can trust. That's why I'm talking about it. Right now, you can get 25% off. You go to ancientnutrition.com and put in the code STREST25. That's STREST 25. STREST25 at ancientnutrition.com. And that's going to get you 25% off site-wide. Make sure you grab my favorite for the dark coffee, which is your multi-collagen protein, but then also try something else as well. You're going to love it. That's STREST25 for 25% off. Get your collagen.
When I saw that it wasn't going to rain the whole day, I'm like, thank you, Jesus, because we can go out in the backyard and run and kick balls and whatever. Those three boys, they just get rambunctious in my house.
So we are picking up from reason we're talking about the weather is because we lost power over and over again during the last time we did this. So this is the second half of Mary Beth Roe. You look beautiful.
Thank you. I got my hair lightened a little bit in the meantime. Your hair looks great too.
Thank you. It's getting longer and longer. It's like we like time traveled forward. What I really wanted to get to, and we were having such a great conversation about you and what you're doing, but I want to go back to you being, are you the longest running host? Were you the longest of any hosts?
Well, Jane was there before me, Jane Tracy, but she took a year off at one point too. So I actually think Jane is the one that's been there the longest.
Oh, that's great. But probably second.
Yeah.
How did you be a woman of faith in a secular world and let that shine through over those last 30 some years?
Yeah. Well, it's part of me. It is me. I am a woman of faith. And so they at QVC, they say, be yourself. And so I was so thrilled about that because I could just be myself. And I think that, it's not like I was standing on a soapbox and preaching, but when you say be yourself, I have to speak about my faith at different times because that's what I am and that's who I am. And I also feel like I wanted to make sure that those viewers who are out there who already know the Lord and are believers, I wanted them to know that I was too. And at the same time, those people who don't have a relationship with Jesus, I wanted them to hopefully see Jesus in me. Before I went on the air every day, I would just say, Lord, let them see Jesus in me. And no matter what I was selling, could be cookware, could be clothing, could be beauty, didn't matter. But I wanted them to be able to see that there was something different about me.
And they did. That was amazing. I think that a lot of people question that though, because it's not like QVC is a Christian network.
No.
But there are, and there have been those of us who were very vocal about our faith.
And I also, back in the early days, long before probably Kirsten was barely born, but anyway, we used to sell music and DVDs and CDs and things like that. And we had Bill Gaither on 3 times. We had Amy Grant on. We had Point of Grace on. And if you don't know these groups, these are Christian singers. And it was like there was already reason for me to kind of explain that I was a woman of faith. And then we started selling Bibles and devotionals and things like that. So all along, the whole time I was at QVC, there were times that we were selling inspirational items. And that was awesome because it really allowed me to speak more about my faith and not feel like I was, preaching or in someone's faith.
Were there times when that was ever hard? Or did you get backlash from viewers? Or were there, because our world's gone through a lot of ups and downs.
Yeah, I would actually say that I got more backlash probably in the last 3 to 4 years than I did before that. People were always so uh, appreciative of me being open about my faith. But I think it's true across the board that in the last 3 to 4 years, people feel so much more free to speak their minds. And you know what? That's okay, because when they spoke their mind, then I would just pray for them. That's all I could do, was pray for them, because for whatever reason, they were feeling kind of convicted.
Wow. That's beautiful. I love that. And I feel the exact same way. I mean, being there, you were definitely that person that I looked up to be able to continue to share my faith in a place that really wasn't faith based. And you know, it was interesting because a lot of the hosts shared similar faith. And that was whenever I was asking the Lord whether or not I should be at QVC or I shouldn't, oftentimes he was telling me, sure, you're able to share your faith with millions of people at times, but it's just as important to be a light within a corporation.
Exactly. I always said I had two mission fields for that whole time. And one was the people that I work with, because once again, it didn't matter where I worked prior to QVC or at QVC, people were going to know how I, feel, what I stand and what I believe in, because that's just me. Again, I can't be anything else. We're not actors and actresses. We're just being ourselves. But my other mission field were those who were watching. So, and when I say a mission field, I mean, I don't want you to think that I was there to preach necessarily, but I wanted to share what I have. What I have, what Kirsten has, is so awesome. Why wouldn't we want to tell people about it?
It's just what you said, that people ask me all the time too, well, how do you marry your faith with your work? And, I do all this stuff with health and it's just me. Like you said, it's just who I am. So if you're standing up and talking for an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, my kids are probably going to come up at some point because that's me, right?
Exactly.
Whatever I did during the day or the day before or whatever's going on in my life. And because Jesus is such a big or the predominant piece of my life, it's going to come up.
It is. It is. And I'm so grateful to QVC that they allowed us to be ourselves. I mean, seriously, there were times when I wondered if they would kind of pull me aside and say, hey, we don't want you to be talking about your faith. They never did that. They never did that to me. And I am so grateful about that.
Times I remember you and I having conversations during times in the year or in those years, and we were concerned that that's the way that things were going. Just because given the climate of the world
Exactly.
and different movements that were going on, we're like, wow, are we going to get
Yeah.
told to stop?
Hmm.
And never.
Never did.
And that's God too.
Oh yeah, that is. And I always, I mean, because the Lord is, he is my life. I was always saying, Lord, I'm here while you want me to be here, because you put me here at QVC. But when you don't want me to be here, I'm out, because I follow him. Whatever he tells me to do, wherever he tells me to go, I follow him. And he wanted me there this whole time, so it was just great. And then when I started feeling like the Holy Spirit was just moving in my soul, that it was getting time to retire, it was for a lot of different reasons. It was to help with the grandkids. It was to also, honestly, the schedule was getting harder at 65 years old. You all know, if you're that age or older, it gets harder, and you try to stay young and you try to stay active and all of that. But hey, it just is what it is. We're aging, and that's the way life is. And so I just got to the point where I felt like I had given and was giving all that I could give, and it was time to hand over the baton.
Yeah. And so now we're a few months out, still feeling the same way.
Hmm. Um, I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that I did what I needed to do. And it's just, it's been great. I do miss it. And there's times when I watch and maybe a guest is on and that I really love, and like Dr. Denise was on, and I was watching her with one of the hosts, and I thought, I can't even imagine never working with her again, or I can't imagine not presenting food again or jewelry. David Markestein was on. And so that's a little bit hard. I'll be honest with you. I sit there and I think, I kind of miss that. But then at the same time, the Lord is definitely telling me I've got other things to do. And so I think it's really exciting.
The other thing that I think is so remarkable about QVC and what has happened over the years there is the amount of adoption in that building. I'm like, what is it? And I truly feel that I was placed there because our facilitator, which is how we adopted Grace, was then given to others within that building. 4 more babies were adopted through that same facilitator when people had come to me and said, hey, you adopted. How did you do it? So I felt like, wow, that was God and the Holy Spirit working through me. You adopted before, so weird to even say that adoption was a big thing, because it is bigger now. But I mean, this was quite a while ago.
26 years. 26 years ago, and actually 27 years ago, because it took more than a year to get her.
Right.
But, um, the person that God used in my life to really encourage me was a couple things. One was Marie Osmond, because that was when she was very popular at QVC. I mean, she's always been popular, but I mean, she was on a lot. We had her dolls on all the time. And we were very, very close friends. And I knew her and was friends with her through a couple of different adoptions that she and her husband did. But at the same time, I'll tell you an interesting story. I don't know if I've ever told you this, but I was actually Mark and I had the 3 boys, and I'd always wanted a little girl. I'm very girly girl anyway, but we had decided, that that was pretty much not going to happen. I mean, even my doctor said, after you have 3 boys, the chances of having a girl is not great. And so anyway, I was actually in the QVC outlet store in just outside of where Westchester is. And I was picking up a few things, and I don't know what it was, but I do know what it was. It was the Holy Spirit. I just got this urge to go, to leave. I set the things down and I just walked out of the store. I couldn't even explain it. I got in my car, I turned on my car, and at that point I had it on a Christian radio station, and Family Life Today is a great program. And that was just coming on. And literally, the first words I heard was, if you have room in your home and your heart for a child that needs to be adopted, this message is for you. And I just stopped and I burst into tears. And as I sat there and listened to that program, and they were talking with people who had adopted, etc., I know it's the only time I ever really felt like, I mean, I always feel Jesus around me, but I felt like he was in my passenger seat and tapping me on the shoulder and saying, this is what I want you to do. I cried through the whole program. I cried all the way home. I thought my husband's never going to go for this. So I walked in the house and Mark happened to be home, and I said, you'll never guess what happened. And I can't even hardly explain it, but I told him about it. And he said right away, his first words were, let's pray. We need to pray about this. And we started to pray. And over the next few days, we just felt like that was what we should do. And so then at that point, we contacted an adoption agency. And I actually used the same agency Marie had used several times, because I knew she would be very picky. And so if it worked for her, I would go with the same group. So I knew I could trust them. And that's how it all got started.
Wow.
Wow is right.
Such a God thing.
It's such a God thing.
You know what's interesting about that story is to adopt Ben, when we decided to adopt Ben, because we were the same way. We had 2 girls. Dan was not on board with having another. I'd had a couple more miscarriages. We had tried. And I wanted to adopt. And he was like, I can't go through it again. It was too hard. And I walked downstairs one day and he was sitting in the living room watching a television show and an ad had come up again for like Wednesday's Child for the local news here. It was all about adoption. And he was in tears and he said, oh, it's gonna make me cry. And he's like, lots of kids out there need hugs. That's what they just said. And we give good hugs. And he's like, we should adopt again.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
You don't think those ads don't work. Apparently they work.
Well, and the thing is, there is no coincidence. These are all ways that God talks to us, and we don't audibly hear him, but it's one of those things where you just know in your heart and your soul and your mind that you are being spoken to. And, we waited 14 months to get Elizabeth. And we didn't even have any specifics other than it needed to be a newborn female. And that was it. And actually, at one point, they did offer us a little 2-year-old girl, and we almost took her. But again, we just prayed and prayed and prayed about it and didn't have a peace in our heart about it. And so then we just continued on, and the rest is 26 years later.
That peace part's really important when you're trying to make decisions or if you're trying to live in your purpose. Having the Lord's peace, participation, and presence is really, really important. When you're trying to make decisions, always go back to, do I feel his peace, presence, and participation?
Exactly. It's interesting though, because if you don't really know the Lord, if you don't have a relationship with the Lord, if you haven't committed your life to Jesus, you may not feel that same kind of those of us who really do have a committed, life to Jesus. And so, but the whole thing is you can pray. He's always listening, and he listens, and the whole thing is that maybe that will bring you to a relationship with him.
What do you miss the most about QVC?
The people,
For sure.
the hosts, just seeing the hosts and the guests and the people who work at the studio desk, and that I miss. Like, I think about those people a lot. And I mean, I've gotten together with a couple of people, but actually I've been quite busy with my own things, to be honest with you. And but there's been a couple of get-togethers that I've been able to go to that allow me to see a few of them. And but anyway, that's the part I miss the most. People will say, "Do you miss being, on the air?" And the answer is no.
Yeah, me either, which is really kind of odd. I thought maybe I would more.
Know it, because I've always loved that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why I went into television, when I was just out of college. I was in TV news. And so I thought I would miss that, but to be honest with you, I don't. I've kind of, for that kind of area, I feel a little been there, done that. Yeah.
That's so true. Yeah, the people for me as well. And how do you, and I think this is a big topic for people once they retire specifically, is how do you combat that loneliness and isolation?
Yeah. Um, I text a lot. It is hard. I won't, pull any punches for sometimes certain days. I do feel kind of down, or I feel a little lonely. And but you know what? It's like, it comes and it passes, and the next day is busy, and then I don't think about it. So it is a transition. I don't care what anybody says. It's not like you go from work, work, work to play, play, play. There is a transition of coming off of what you've been doing for years and years, decades, and trying to figure out what the new normal is. You know, there are times when for some days, I was, like, staying in bed too long, and but I did it because it was kind of a little bit of that, "Well, I'm gonna stay in bed because I can," you know? And, but I found that after a few days of that, then I was like, "Okay, MB, get out of bed, wash your face, brush your teeth, get dressed, because the rest of the world is going and you need to go with it. So it's like I had to kind of push myself to do that. But I think a lot of that is just that, when you go, 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 as 100 miles an hour we were doing, especially prior to retirement, it was a little bit of my rebellion.
Yeah, I don't know how you did it. I mean, 20 plus years younger and I was exhausted and you were pushing so hard at Q. Cuz it's more than people think. It's more than what you see on television. So,
But it's all good.
it's great.
That's the thing. It's all good and you love it and you love doing it. But I mean, there's only so much energy. And by the way, I still believe this 100% with all my heart, that if you're on the air for 3 hours, it's like working 8 straight hours.
Yeah,
It,
agreed.
it takes so much nonstop energy that it's not like working 3 hours at a job where you sit. Also, there is stress, and stress is exhausting.
Yeah.
So,
And the type of person who does it, Mary Beth, myself, everybody that you watch, are people who could never do that quiet quitting, who could never half it. Because there were times, and even my husband would say, could you just go in and not give 100% because this is going on at home, you're exhausted, or they'll call you in, somebody's sick and you need to fill in, and any other person in any other job would be like, okay, well, I'm going to go in sweats today and give half. And it's like we physically can't do it. We can't not do 100%. And sometimes we really should do half, but we
you know
can't.
what? You can't, because first of all, you're in front of millions of people. And so your own, you know, maybe pride, but says, I've got to do a good job. That red light comes on the camera and you're there and ready to roll. You can't just stand there and go, I don't feel like talking to you today, or I don't feel like doing this today. So I'm going to just let the guest take over. You can't do that, even though sometimes you might feel like you want to.
We have this conversation going on, myself and a couple of the other hosts and guests, because now TikTok's the big thing.
Yes.
Have you watched it all?
No, I haven't.
Okay.
I have to be honest with you. I have not gone on TikTok yet.
It's okay.
I'm sure I will at some point, but
Listen, you got other things to do. But I have stumbled upon it and I've heard stories about, because it's not all QVC hosts. Let me make that very, very clear. QVC hosts are sometimes on it, but 90% of the time it's like hired influencers who are on the QVC TikTok page. And there's been times in the middle of the night where it's like 4 hours that they're on it and they just don't talk. They'll just be quiet for 10 minutes, or somebody fell asleep. Or I watched this one woman.
I can't believe
I'm not bagging on them. I'm just saying that, like, this one woman, she was like making her kids breakfast and dealing with the dog. And then she'd like chime in every once in a while. Oh yeah, that's a hot deal up here right now. And then she'd like, oh yeah, what was that, Julie? What did you need? And then she'd be like, oh yeah, you should get the Scrub Daddy. They're really, really good. And then,
oh my word.
and I was like, you guys, maybe that's the key to multiple hours in live television, is to just not really do the job.
Exactly. That wouldn't go over very well at QVC,
No.
let me tell you.
So when you watch it that way, and maybe that's part, and I haven't been a big TikTok person either, so maybe that's what you're used to on TikTok, and that's just like normal on TikTok, which is fine. But understand, those aren't QVC hosts.
No. And QVC hosts could never do that. Literally, you could never do that. Yeah, you filled space.
Yeah.
It's like you talk when there's never much of a pause.
No.
I always say I like to take a pause once in a while, take a deep breath, because when you talk for hours and hours, you tend to breathe shallow, and that's not necessarily good. In fact, sometimes in between shows, when they'd run a 30-second commercial, I'd find myself yawning. And it wasn't because I was so tired. It was because my body's saying, you need to take a deep breath, lady. And so I would end up having to yawn. And then my producer would be like, are you so tired? I'm like, no, I just need air. I just need air.
Yeah, you need oxygen. That's so true. But also for the viewer, like if you're just talking like this for 3 hours, the same person over and over again, it becomes kind of monotone in the background. And what we want to do is grab your attention, because our goal is to get you to buy something on television. So fluctuating your voice and stopping from time to time. But you're right. We would never just sit there in silence. That would be like,
It would be painful for me to
it's
watch.
so painful for
I'm
us to
telling
watch.
you, seriously.
What is the next 30 years? What are your dreams, your goals, your hopes?
The thing that I would love to do first is just spend more time with my family, just like I said, and spend more time with the grandkids and my hubby and my own kids. I don't always get to go do something with Elizabeth or go visit Corey out in California because I was busy. And so I want to do more of that. I want to go and visit friends and family members that are around the country. Mark and I have said we want to go here, we want to go there and see this person, see that person. We've got a few friends that all moved to Houston in the last 5 years. So I said, we're going to Houston, not until the fall. I'm not going there in the summertime, that's for sure. But anyway, so that's one of the things. We're not big on like traveling all over the world. I don't know. That's just not interesting to the two of us. Traveling all over this country is. And then I would like to just get more involved in my church. I'd like to possibly write a book. I look up to you on that.
What's the book going to be about?
Well, I think the book is more about the long road, the long haul kind of thing. How do you just do something that you love, but do it for such a long period of time? And I think too, a lot of times there were ups and downs in our family life and, things that you don't even know about. And, you know, from the outside looking in, it looks very much like, wow, she has everything. She's got this great job. She's got these great kids and all that. But you know what? Nobody's life is perfect or, stress free or pain free. And so I think I'd love to just be able to be real in the book completely. And that wasn't always possible on air. You know what I mean?
And I think now more and more, I mean, I was notorious for oversharing, still am. More people are, but not every host was comfortable with sharing everything either. Other That was another thing. The book writing, it's very cathartic. I think you should totally do it. I think a lot of people would benefit from you doing that. Would the kids be on board with their stories being told, do you think?
And that I haven't asked them. So it won't happen until that's,
Right.
you know,
That's necessary.
that's already been okayed by them.
Yeah.
Because even when I used to post things about the kids, I always checked first, even with the grandkids, I check, can I show this picture on my QVC Facebook or whatever? So yeah, thank you for saying that.
I'm getting into that age now where like the kids used to be perfectly fine and now that two girls are teenagers and I will pull up like old stuff like when they were on the air at QVC when they were babies or little guys and I'll repost it or something like that and they'll be like, Mom, take that down, I look horrible when I was 8 or so I have to be cognizant of that stuff too. But yeah, it is, you know in my first book I share their story and they didn't really have, I said it from my point of view, but they didn't really have the chance to say whether or not I could share their story. They are fine with it now, but part of me goes, I didn't even think about that writing a book when I had 1 and 2 year olds, what they would feel like at 12 or 15.
And especially when we're talking about adoption, there's just a whole nother level of things that you deal with when you adopt a child. When other people have said to me, are you a big, proponent of adoption? I'm like, absolutely. However, the realistic part of adoption is that that child is going to question several times, who's my mom? Who's my original birth mother, birth father? Why did they give me up? Why did you adopt me? There's just a lot of things. And that's not always easy, especially when they are, getting into that 11, 12, 13, 14-year old age. And so, but I think that that could be really helpful to a lot of people.
Yeah, which is exactly why you need to do it, because I think it could be too. And listening for God and his peace and his presence and his participation in it to make sure you're doing the right thing. What do you wish that everybody knew about QVC or your time there that they don't? Is there anything?
It's hard for me to sometimes read the chats because I do feel like people feel so much more able to just speak their minds. And, as they used to say, I used to tell my kids, if you don't want the whole world to know, don't say it on social media, and also if you couldn't say that to their face, then don't say it on social media. And, so I would want to tell a lot of people out there, I know maybe you like certain hosts and you don't like others or whatever, and that's fine. I mean, I watch the news, I like certain people and don't really care for others, but I don't tell anybody that. But it's like these people that are hosts on QVC are brilliant. They have personality plus. They are the hardest workers I know because it's 24/7. It really truly is. Whether they're on air or not, there's always something we were working on. And whether it's prepping that show or whatever it might be. And I also think that, does every company have their problems? Absolutely. But overall, people who work for QVC are passionate about the customer. Every decision that's made is made with the customer in mind. Is this best for the customer? And, they don't like to have to raise prices, but hey, that's the world we live in. And, it's just, you have to think of it as more of, I mean, are other businesses doing that? Absolutely. That's why QVC has to too. It's not because they're trying to be mean or anything. It's an awesome company. It's an awesome place to shop. And I mean, I hardly ever buy anything from anywhere else. I really don't because I just feel like they have what I need and what I want. And and it's good product. It's good quality.
Yeah, I think so many people are looking as there's been like this kind of, and it's not a mass exodus, but it was the time for a lot of people, myself, Jen, you, to, you know, do different things. Looking for like, what's the story there? Like, why? What happened? Like, are they mean? Are they pushing you out? And there isn't a story.
There really isn't.
We all and for me, it was a God thing. Like it really was God. And I fought with him. You've all heard this. I fought with him about it because it was such a great life for me and for my family there. We all leave and still love QVC, and they're not paying us to say that we love it. Might we work for them in some capacity at some point down the line again? Sure. But that's not why we're saying it. We're saying it because we really do. It was such a wonderful place for our families. It was such a place where we met some of our best friends in the world, had some of the best times of our lives. And it really is, there's no story.
Yeah. I'm so grateful. Even when I knew I wanted to retire, I didn't really know how QVC would handle that because it had been a long time since, somebody like myself who had been there for so long had left. But you know what? I just trusted them that they would do what was right for them. And I didn't go into it with any expectation. And honestly, they blew me away. I mean, they did way more than I could have ever imagined with helping to even pick some product and doing all these shows. And I mean, it was just amazing. And it really truly was. And so I am just completely and utterly grateful to them and grateful that the Lord put me there all those years ago. I'm so grateful.
Last question I always ask everybody on the show is, are there any mental, emotional, physical, non-negotiable health practices that have kept you and that you continue to do today, or maybe that you're changing towards doing?
Well, that's a good point. Certainly, you know, being in my Bible, reading my Bible. Um, Mark and I have been in small groups, Bible studies, kind of all along the way. And so having that support group is super important. I was thinking my mental health. Emotionally, I tend to be a pretty up person, but obviously, I always said at the end of the day, I loved coming home to Mark. I just loved coming home. He would give me the biggest hug and kiss, and he'd always say, "You're always loved here." and it was just so awesome because maybe somebody at work wasn't, happy with me, or maybe I read something on the social media or whatever that was somebody wasn't happy with me. One person told me I was so sweet, I gave them diabetes. So I'm so sorry, but that was just the way God made me. And I was like, well, that's too bad, sorry. But physically, I always know I've needed sleep. And I didn't always get a lot of sleep because I tended to work either late nights for 20 to 25 years. I worked the prime time. So I would get home at 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, or I switched over to mornings. Well, then I'm getting up at 3 and 3:30 and 4. So when I would get a day off, I would make sure that I didn't have anything planned until noon so that I could sleep in and try to catch up on that. There were certain foods, the funny part is people don't realize this, but when you can't go to the restroom for 3 and 4 hours at a time and things like that, you become very specific about what you eat prior to going on air, what you eat the night before you go on the air. You're thinking about bathroom breaks and gas and whatnot, and so, yeah, there were certain things that I like Reuben sandwiches with sauerkraut. But honey, you don't eat those unless you got the day off the next day. So it was like Mark would say, should I make a Reuben tonight? And I'm like, no. How about Thursday night? I have Friday off.
But look at Mary Beth, like hitting one of the main components of your nutritional wellness, which is sauerkraut, which is so good for
I
you.
love sauerkraut.
Fermented food is fantastic for your gut. So
Yeah.
see, she knew it without even knowing
I
it.
didn't even really know that it's good.
Oh yeah,
for me.
it's so good for you. You should try and have it every day, but maybe not before you go on the air.
Yeah, exactly. Now I'm much easier to do it every day. But anyway, yeah, those are the things that that come to my mind, and that a lot of people don't think about,
Yeah.
that we have to think about.
So true. Mary Beth, I love you so much.
I love you more.
Thank you for
I
being here.
really do. I have to just say that I admire you so much because you are so open about your faith. And, to for me to leave after all those years, I've squirreled away money for retirement, etc. But you are at a point in your life where you're raising 3 children and you've got your hubby. And honestly, for you to leave QVC, I honestly couldn't imagine it. And so I just have so much respect and admiration for you, especially because you did it for ministry's sake. And to do that because you want to be in ministry and minister to other people and bring them closer to the Lord, I think is just so incredible. I wish you the best.
I love you. You're so sweet. When we went on the missions trip, same story with Mary Beth. She's like, how can we support you? Do you need money? Can you do this? That was kind of the soft jump, right? I was like, okay, I'll go for 4 months without having any income. And then God saying, okay, well, now you really have to jump in and do it. And I would absolutely be lying if I said that I'm not scared a lot, but I also have that peace, participation, and presence of God, knowing it's the right decision. And even if I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, like I have to really be very present and not go, okay, in October, am I going to have a paycheck? Because right now, this moment, I'm okay. God provides.
I was just going to say the other P in peace and presence and participation is provide. He provides more than we could ever imagine. I mean, just in the last week, God has provided so much in our lives. And I can't even just go into all of it, but just know that He is, sometimes I say, Lord, why would you care so much about me? I'm just a little peon here. There's millions of people and millions of people that know you personally. And I say, people will say, well, how do I get to know the Lord? And I said, admit you're a sinner, because guess what? We're all sinners. I'm a sinner too. But you have to believe that Jesus is the Son of God, and that He died for you and He rose again and He's alive. He's not dead like all the other people that people worship. And He's alive, and you can feel His presence daily. And then you make that commitment to say, you know what, Lord, I want to live for you. I want to live for you, Jesus. And I just think when you can do that, your life will change in such an amazing way. Will you still have problems? Will you still have pain? Absolutely. But you have peace through it all. You have joy through the pain. And it's absolutely amazing.
He's not done with you. I can tell. You've got a lot more to share. I love you.
Love you too.
Coming up on the next episode of StRest, do you feel overwhelmed? Like everything all at once? Mind racing, anxiety. Maybe you think you have anxiety or depression. It could be ADHD. More women have it than we think, and they aren't being diagnosed. I found this amazing guest, Shauna Pearson, because the foreword of her book was done by Dr. Amen, and his brain research is unparalleled. She is going to give us tips, techniques, and tools in order to manage ADHD, but also to be able to figure out if you are somebody who might have it. Midlife is a time when we really see a lot of it happening, especially in women, and you do not have to suffer alone, especially if perhaps you've been misdiagnosed with depression and anxiety, and it really is ADHD. This is a fantastic conversation, and I think you're going to get a lot of useful tools out of it, especially if you are somebody who is dealing with the overwhelm. That's coming up on the next episode of StRest.
If you're enjoying the show, don't forget to subscribe and leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. Your reviews help others find the podcast and join our community. Follow me on social media at Kirsten.Lindquist for daily tips and inspiration. And visit my website at www.kirsten-lindquist.com to sign up for our newsletter and receive exclusive content. The information provided in this podcast is for informational and educational purposes only and should not be considered a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified health provider with any questions that you may have regarding a medical condition. The host of this podcast is a certified health coach and medical researcher, not a licensed medical professional, and the content shared does not constitute medical advice. While we strive to provide accurate and up-to-date information, we encourage you to do your own research and consult with your healthcare provider before making any changes to your healthcare treatment plans. Thank you for joining me on this journey to reduce stress and make room for rest. Remember, you're not alone. Keep coming back, share your story, ask for help, and give yourself grace.